The NFL draft is in the books, and now it's time to recap it, specifically looking at the New York Jets and how their roster has changed. But we're not going to do it the way that a lot of people do it, where we assign an overall grade to the draft. No, we're going to go position by position with this team, break it down, and take a look at where this team really is. So we're going to grade the Jets by overall grade by each position. So that's what's coming up tonight. Glad you are here. I'm glad I'm here. It's Wednesday night. It's 6 p.m. and we are live. And well, welcome everybody back to New York Sports WickerMedia. I am your party host, WattsUK99. Thank you, as always, for joining me for our weekly Wednesday night live extravaganza. So it is NFL Draft Recap Night, so we got a few things to get into. We'll talk about each pick. We'll talk about some of the undrafted free agents as well. I'll even take it into a little bit of my mind, which is a scary place to be, I know, and kind of give you my mindset with each draft pick, kind of what I was thinking and how I'm feeling about things at this point. All right, so I see we got a few people already in the chat. Fantastic. Glad that you are here. I see Danger Zone is here. Unfortunately, the emoji doesn't quite it doesn't quite always show up, but but the man is here. I want to thank Dane for having me on his show on Friday and Saturday when he, myself, and a few other of the greats were live streaming the draft, and I was able to hop on the Thursday and Friday portions for a little while, and yeah, definitely had a great time. For sure. So I thank Dane for that. The great father Abraham and his many sons are here. Harlan Abraham, Papa Abraham, glad you are here. Hope you're having a good week. Let me guys know how you feel about the draft as we go through it tonight. Well, we'll get to the draft in just a moment. But first of all, it's time for me to go through those topics in the world of New York sports. After all, this is New York Sports WickerMedia, that are on my minds, things I need to talk about, but sometimes they're just best left for the show rather than doing a whole video. And that's what we're going to do right now. So let's talk about what's on my mind in a little bit of what we like to call 3 and out. First thing, I feel like on Tuesday night, 2 teams in the New York metropolitan area had their season die. One was the New Jersey Devils. They lose to the Carolina Hurricanes in double overtime. They were eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Hurricanes are the first NHL team to clinch a series this year. They win the series in 5. Devils really blew this game. They scored the first 3 goals of the game in the first 10 minutes. Then early in the second, they allow 3 straight goals in under 5 minutes. The game eventually goes to overtime. Sebastian Aho scores actually in double overtime on the power play to end it. And I said this from the beginning. I didn't expect a very long series. It wasn't. Without Jack Hughes, without Dougie Hamilton, Devils' backs were against the wall. It just was not going to happen. And the Devils, by the way, one playoff series win in 13 years. But because it was against the Rangers, you would know that because, they pretty much raised an extra banner to the top of the Prudential Center for that one series. So to me, I expected a little bit more from the Devils. But again, without Jack Hughes, who is, in my mind, one of the top 10 players in the NHL, they're at a huge disadvantage against a much deeper Hurricanes team. And speaking of the other team whose season pretty much died yesterday, it's the New York Knicks. Now, Game 6 is still coming up, all right? But you look at the Eastern Conference on Tuesday night in the NBA, and let's think about what went down. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they'd already swept Miami. They won those 4 games by 21 points, 9 points, 37 points, and 55 points. Yeesh! My God. Then Tuesday, in Boston, Orlando leads the Celtics at halftime by 2 points. Boston comes out in the third quarter and says, enough of this. let's end this series right now. They outscore the Magic 36-13 in the third quarter, coast to a victory and a series win in 5. Even the Indiana Pacers, the hated Pacers, they're up 3-1 on Milwaukee in the series, and the game goes to overtime. The Bucks take a 7-point lead with under 2 minutes to go. And what does Indiana do? They go on an 8-0 run to end the game. They eliminate Milwaukee in 5. Unbelievable comeback. The Knicks, they lose at home to Detroit by 3, forcing a Game 6 in Detroit. Once again, the Knicks fail to close out a team at home, and it's frustrating. Do you realize the last time the New York Knicks won a playoff series at home was the 1999 Eastern Conference Finals, June of 1999? I know that day. It was the night I went on my first date in my life, and I haven't had any since. No, I'm just kidding. But we went to see Notting Hill. I still remember the movie. Great date movie, I will say. But seriously, I'm disgusted with this team. I have defended Tom Thibodeau amongst all criticism from Knicks fans. I can't do it anymore. He fails to get Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart checked back into the game late, but he instead chooses to keep his last time out, does not sub them in. And here's what's frustrating. This Knicks team is talented. They have no killer instinct, shooting 59% from the free throw line. That's a hallmark of the early 90s Knicks teams. They come out flat every single third quarter, and even if the Knicks win this series, Boston's going to kill them. They're going to kill them. Boston has the extra rest. They have home court. The Knicks are levels below the best teams in the NBA. It's been 52 years, no NBA title. Keep counting. All right, and one quick word on baseball. I'm going to talk about the Mets for just a minute here. The vibe couldn't be much better at Citi Field. The Mets are 21-9 overall, 28-5 in their last 33 games at home, 13-1 at Citi Field this year. And here's what I like. They got walked off twice in Washington this past week, but they rallied to win the games after. They did not allow a bad loss to fester and let it turn into a 4 or 5 game losing streak. The defense last night was magical. Francisco Lindor, Tyrone Taylor, amazing. Jose Butto bounced back from a rough weekend, 2 hitless innings with 4 strikeouts. Now one of the disappointing parts, AJ Minter, their lefty reliever, has a torn lat, likely out for the season. So now the Mets have a little bit of a hole in that bullpen. Hopefully Daniel Nunez can come back, but now they're missing that lefty in the pen. They have Danny Young, but I don't think too many Met fans really trust him. But the other thing overall, in a baseball perspective, the National League is so much better than the American League. It's ridiculous. If you're a fan of the Yankees, you got to be thrilled. All right. Currently, the National League has a plus 69 run differential. It's ridiculous how much better they are. And they have a plus 69 run differential, and that's with the Colorado Rockies, who are 4-25, having a minus 78 run differential. If you look at the top 7 teams in Major League Baseball, 2 at the most are in the American League, and you can argue only 1. The Yankees and Tigers are both good, but you look at the Dodgers, the Padres, the Giants, the Cubs, the Mets, the Braves who are getting back into it, and the Phillies. Boy, if you're a fan of an American League team, man, this is like the NIT compared to the NCAA tournament. Unbelievable. All right, so let's go ahead and get out of there right now. Enough of the 3 and out. It's time to get into some New York Jets football. So I propose that I think we need to change the background here, don't we? Yeah, I think we need to take it from Queens and move it all over to Florham Park. There we go. Looks much better. See a few more people popping into the chat. Welcome, newbies. Feel free to throw a comment in there if you have any thoughts, you got any questions on your mind. I will be happy to take a look at them. But anyway, it is now time to get into Gang Green. So everybody, let me hear you say it. Jets, Jets. And we got a whole lot to talk about tonight in the Jets news. First thing we got to talk about is the news that broke earlier this afternoon, this very unfortunate news. And Jordan Travis, the quarterback they drafted last year in the 5th round from Florida State, they knew he was injured, but decided to take a flyer on him, felt his talent was, a day 2 worthy quarterback. And so they drafted him. Unfortunately, his fractured ankle and leg have not responded the way that they would have hoped. And today, Jordan Travis informed the New York Jets he will be retiring from football. So, you know what? I can't be upset at anybody. It was a flyer we're taking. It's just sometimes crappy things happen. It's like Cam Clark, who was a very good guard that the Jets drafted from Charlotte in Joe Douglas's first year. And I think he would have been a very good player. I got a chance to actually see the Charlotte team play in person when they played ODU way back when. But unfortunately, neck injuries derailed his career. Clark went on to become something of a mentor. In fact, he helped rehabilitate Mekhi Becton's career, which is pretty crazy to think about. Jordan Travis isn't much different. It's just, it was a chance we're taking. Stinks it didn't work out. But again, it was only a 5th-round pick. So whatever JT decides to do from here, we wish him the best. We wish him nothing but happiness. It's just a shame that it didn't work out. But now you think about where the Jets are in their quarterback room, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Now we know who the starter is. We know who the backup is. And we'll get into the other quarterback they did acquire during draft weekend. But now you could actually think about free agents. Now, if you're wondering about who might still be out there on the quarterback market, I'm going to run the names by you. And if any of these guys get you excited, okay. Carson Wentz, Teddy Bridgewater, if he actually plays, CJ Beathard, Tyler Huntley, Brett Rippon, Jeff Driscoll, Desmond Ridder, Jake Fromm, and Aaron Rodgers is available. Who would have thunk it? Oh, I think my computer just got unplugged. Oh, there we go. Pardon me, just got to hook the system back up. So this will just take 1 second. Just to make sure we're plugged in. There we go. So, yeah, Aaron Rodgers, still a free agent. I don't think that's exactly going to happen. But so it very well could just be. Adrian Martinez and Brady Cook are going to fight for that 3rd quarterback job. And that's pretty it. Let's see. Harlan with a question. How about Jordan McLeod? I did see his name. I know he had a visit, but did anybody sign him? Yeah, I don't think anyone did. Yeah, I've got Jordan McLeod pulled up, but I didn't see any news. I know he didn't get drafted. Oh, he has a camp invite from Tampa Bay as of 3 days ago. All right, so yep, so he is so he went to Texas State, by the way. So it looks like right now he's heading over to Tampa Bay. So that's the latest news on Jordan McLeod. But hey, good chance he may not make that roster. And if he doesn't, hey, come cut down day, you never know who you might sign. And in the Jets situation where there are certain positions where they have rather low level talent, there's certain positions they will be targeting, and a developmental quarterback could be one of them, especially if they're not a fan of Brady Cook. So a couple of players who are likely to be former Jets, not saying it officially yet, but none of these players got free agent tenders. So these guys are all completely free agents. They will not factor into the comp formulas or anything like that. So Chuck Clark, Sam Eguavoen, Jake Hansen, offensive lineman, Greg Joseph, who kicked 1 game with us, Jalen Mills, and I'm a Jalen Mills fan. I've been screaming for the Jets to bring him back. Kendall Sheffield and Malik Taylor. I don't think anybody is going to lose any sleep over any of these guys leaving. Chuck Clark, I think, could have worked out. It's just a shame that he tore his ACL that first year, and it reduced a player who is not known for blazing speed to being much, much slower. But if I could bring one back, who would be? It'd be Jalen Mills, and you plug him in at safety. That's what I would want to do. So let's recap this draft. All right. So if a lot of people, like I said at the top of the show, they like to do letter grades the day after the draft comes out. I think it's ridiculous. Most of us don't really know many of the players that are out. I mean, I got to be honest. I did not look up any film on the linebacker, on Francisco, the linebacker from Miami. I apologize about that. So it's not fair for me to grade. But what we can do is look at the players, look at their history, look at the position as a whole, and figure out where the Jets really are in the world of the NFL. But if I had to sum up this draft in a single word, that word would be methodical. It was a very by-the-book draft. It was about building the foundation. It wasn't about being flashy. It wasn't about getting the headlines. But remember, without a good, firm foundation, the building cannot stand. And I listened to one particular Jets podcast this afternoon who was upset that the Jets didn't take more chances, that they were going with safe picks. And it's like, we've had so many busts. I'll take a couple of safe picks. Even if they're not going to be all pro players, if I could get 3 reliable starters out of this draft, you know what? I'm good with that. I'm more than fine with that. If the worst thing that you could say about a draft is that your team didn't take enough chances, that usually means they did some pretty smart stuff. And I thought, for the most part, the Jets did do that. So let's look at each position here. First of all, the quarterback situation. So they bring in Brady Cook from Missouri as an undrafted free agent, 6'2", 214 pounds. So we're going to talk about some of these players. Played 47 games in college, completed 66% of his passes, 50 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, over 9,200 yards. That's pretty dang good. Dealt with some injuries in 2024, but still had a bowl victory over Iowa, 10-3 record. Team captain, ticks a lot of boxes, can make about every throw you want him to make. Athletic runner outside of the pocket. Now, the issues, his timing and his accuracy. He needs to work on his eye discipline to keep windows open and keep the safeties away from him. His decision-making is not quite where you want it, and I think that's the main reason he went undrafted. Also, his release point is kind of low, so there's a good chance he might have those passes knocked down at the line of scrimmage. And how many things are more frustrating in football than a pass that gets knocked down by a defensive lineman? You know, it feels like the Bills do that 4 or 5 times a game to us, doesn't it? You know, Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, all these guys always Greg Rousseau knocking down our passes all the time. Aren't you all getting a little bit tired of that? Because I am. So I expect Brady Cook to be on the practice squad, but now that Jordan Travis has retired, there's a good chance Cook might make that third spot on that third quarterback spot. I think it's him and Martinez competing for the third spot. So when you factor it in with Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor, and you look at it overall, I'd say this is a little bit less than average. I give it a C-. I don't think Justin Fields is an above average starter in the NFL, but I think Tyrod Taylor is an above average backup in the NFL. Cook, Martinez, whatever, just a wild card. So I got to go a little under average with the quarterback room. So I'm going C- there. All right, so then we go to the running back situation. Starting to get a feel for the format tonight? All right, very good. So the Jets bring in Donovan Edwards from Michigan, maybe the biggest name that they brought in for the undrafted free agent market. A lot of people thought he would be drafted, and 4 years with the Wolverines, 2,251 yards, 19 touchdowns, 5.3 yards per carry, and also he can help you in the receiving game. 797 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. He's a bruising back. He's not going to give you a lot of acceleration, not going to give you that top-end speed, but again, he has power, good blocker. He can protect the passer very, very well. I could see him competing for a roster spot if the Jets choose to use 4 running backs, as I really think there's no shot of a fullback making this roster. I know Andrew Beck is here, but I don't see it happening. And Nick Barden, it was nice when we had you. All right, so when you factor Donovan Edwards in, along with Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, don't forget Kene Nwangwu, who's back from his broken hand. He gives you something in the return game. I think this is a very good running back room, one of the best in football, a very deep one. I'm going to give it a B+ right now because we still haven't seen them produce the way we would like them to produce. It feels like there is more to get out of these players, hopefully with some new scheming and a revamped right side of the offensive right tackle anyway, and better, I would say tight ends, but we'll get to tight end in a moment. But I think scheme, offensive coordinator, that's going to help the running backs do that much better. So I'm going B+ for the running backs. I think one of the best positions that the Jets have on their roster. Danger zone. Watch quarterback 3 wind up being Dylan Gabriel. When he went as early as he did, I almost fell out of my chair. Okay, and I was in a Subaru Forester, I was actually in the car at that point. I almost fell out the car. I was like, Dylan Gabriel's going before Kyle McCord and Quinn Ewers and all these guys, but hey, good on him. He's going to get his opportunity, and God bless him. But he's going to Cleveland, so there's a good chance he may not make the roster. It's possible. You factor in Shador and everybody else. I mean, who knows? Who really knows? All right, so then we go to the wide receiver room, and this one's got a lot of people talking. So the Jets draft Arian Smith from Georgia. I would say definitely the most maligned draft pick that they made. And what was frustrating to me is the 5 picks before him or all players I would have had interest in. Cam Scatterbo goes to the Giants. Craig Woodson, the safety, I liked him. He goes to the freaking Patriots. I was not happy. Then Jack Kaiser, the linebacker, I think he went to Tampa, if I remember correctly. Dante Thornton, the wide receiver from Tennessee, I loved him. I wanted him on the Jets very, very much. Thought he'd be that field stretcher we really, really needed. It didn't work out. He goes to the Raiders. And by the way, how good did the Raiders do at wide receiver? Jack Besh and Dante Thornton? Oh, my God. And then the Bills, who purposely traded up to get right ahead of us twice, I'd like to point that out, draft Deone Walker, the big defensive tackle from Kentucky. So right there, 5 players go I would have been interested in. I know Scatterbo, the running back, would be a stretch to take at 4 for the Jets, but he's going to be really, really good, and the Giants are going to be very happy that they drafted him. So instead, the Jets take Arian Smith, 6 feet, 170 pounds. I'm 4 inches shorter and 10 pounds heavier than him, and he went. But think of the wide receivers on the board. I know Jalen Lane is the one most people are talking about with the comparable speed, but Jalen Royals, who was in my top 5, was on the board. Alec Aomanor, who I also really liked, he was there on the board too. A couple other wide receivers. Now, I see what the Jets see in him, and it's really the speed and also his work ethic. So his time at the 40-yard dash was 4.36 seconds. That's 5th fastest at the combine behind Matthew Golden, Dante Thornton, there's that name again, Shamir Dyke, or DK, I'm sorry, it's a DK is how you say his name. I apologize. YouTube, don't take me down for saying that word. If I said Dick Van, you wouldn't have a problem. And Jalen Lane. All right, so Smith is super fast. Muji takes him at 110. PFF had him at 343 on their board. I'm worried about the injuries more so than I am the drops, okay? He's had a fractured wrist, a torn meniscus in his knee, a broken fibula, and a high ankle sprain. 3 surgeries from that. 10 drops last year. Now, that's the other thing people are talking about are the drops. Well, let's look at this in a little bit bigger picture. Let's look at some of the other wide receivers at Georgia. Dylan Bell had 6 drops last year. Dominic Lovett had 5 drops. Maybe Georgia just doesn't coach wide receivers all that well, or maybe that quarterback was really that bad. But I can respect that Arian Smith acknowledged that it is an issue for him, and it's something he's going to work on. I don't know when his birthday is, but the Jets should get him a jugs machine and put it right there in his living room. One in the living room, one in the bathroom, one in the kitchen. I want him to be at a jugs machine at all times. Okay. The other thing with him, 6 missed tackles forced on 68 receptions. Isn't that great either? When you have that much speed, you should be able to make some players miss. He didn't do that. When I did my whole breakdown on wide receiver, I didn't even have him in my top 20. It was outside my top 20. Mel Kiper had him as his 33rd wide receiver. I know some people will joke that because Kiper had him at 33, it means he'll be a hit now. So maybe that gives everybody a little bit of confidence. Lance Zierlein had him as a 7th round prospect. It's just frustrating because 2 more picks. Maybe the Jets would have taken Thornton. Maybe they did. Maybe they weren't going to do that, but they have Arian Smith. Hopefully it works out. But outside of being like a gunner, maybe a return weapon, I would not expect him to get in more than like 5 plays a game. I really do. I think this is a gadget player that you use in certain spots and hope when he does get on the field that he produces. But the Jets did bring him in some undrafted free agents that we need to talk about as well. There's Jamal Pritchett from South Alabama, 5'8", 175, ran a 4.42 40, which is pretty good. 91 catches, 1,127 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Now, the issue is he's not overly explosive. He has good long speed, and his RAS score is kind of low. And obviously, 5'8", he's not exactly a giant here, okay? But maybe he helps in the return game too. Quentin Skinner from Kansas, 6'4", 200 pounds. Well, there's your tall receiver. Last year, 22.3 yards per catch, has 80 career catches, so not a lot of production, but 11 touchdowns on those 80 catches. He's got a big catch radius, but again, not a lot of production last year, only 25 catches. He ran a 4.51 40. That's not ideal anyway. And can you coach a receiver to run faster? I don't know. I'd rather teach the receiver to catch as opposed to try to make him faster. But another receiver that the Jets brought in is Dymere Miller from Rutgers University. How about that for Jersey? 5'11", 184. This is a yak slot kind of guy. Last year, 59 catches, 757 yards, 4 touchdowns, 12.8 yards per catch, ran a 4.37 40, which is great. And looking at the 10-yard split, 1.44 seconds. That is elite levels. Okay, before Rutgers, he was playing at Monmouth. In 2023, 90 catches, 1,293 yards, 9 touchdowns. Now, the thing with Miller, you got to get the ball to him in space. He's not going to make a lot of contested catches, but an explosive playmaker worth watching. Funny, if you listen to the last 30 seconds of what I said, this sounds like Malachi Corley, the sequel. All right? So the point is, you got a lot of receivers here now. The Jets have a lot of holdovers. They brought in a number of players. They signed a lot of players this weekend. So let's see what winds up happening. Like what I see, here's the thing with wide receiver. Okay? Wide receiver and defensive tackle to me are very similar. You have one great player and then a lot of question marks. So we look at the additions. Arian Smith, Jamal Pritchard, Quentin Skinner, Dymere Miller. You add that to Garrett Wilson and then drop Alan Lazard, Josh Reynolds, Tyler Johnson, Malachi Corley, Xavier Gibson, Brandon Smith, last year's preseason darling. You know, to me, all I can give this is a C+. That's the best I could do. And I'm only if Garrett was C-. I mean, if Garrett wasn't there, this would be a D, maybe even an F. In fact, I'd probably go F if it wasn't for Garrett. Because after that, you're looking at a bunch of 3 and 4 level wide receivers, a bunch of question marks. So I look at this, there will be at least a dozen receivers who have an opportunity to get a starting job, to get significant playing time. So who's willing to work for it? Who's going to do it? Going to be one of the biggest questions this summer and early fall in Florham Park. Then we go to tight end. So the Jets draft Mason Taylor with their second-round pick, 6'5", 250 pounds. Made sense. That was the pick I wanted them to make at that time. He was the best all-around tight end on the board. They needed to draft a tight end, especially after passing on Tyler Warren. So with Taylor, he started 3 years for LSU, finished his career with 129 receptions, 1,308 yards, both school records for a tight end. Very steady player, maybe never quite dominant, but always very good, very reliable, high floor. This year, 55 catches, 546 yards, 2 touchdowns, only 1 drop. I like that. And my favorite thing that I heard, Nick Saban said, passing on Mason Taylor was the biggest recruiting mistake they ever made at Alabama. And Nick Saban was there for a long freaking time. So saying that speaks volumes. But with Taylor, you're going to get a well-rounded tight end, the athleticism, the size, the football IQ, the genetics. He could contribute as a receiver and a blocker. His route running, very, very clean, good, reliable hands, willing to engage with defenders. So he can be an effective blocker, although that is one part of his game that I think still needs some improvement. But being that he's versatile, you could put him as the inline tight end, the slot tight end. He could create a mismatch against a linebacker or a safety. So it'd be nice to see him gain a little more strength to help him with his blocking, expand his route tree a little bit more. So I think there's a good chance he could be that pass catcher in the middle that the Jets need. But adding strength, I think, is one of the most important things that he could do to be a contributor from week 1. So we had Mason Taylor on the roster. We had Jeremy Ruckert, Stone Smart, and, of course, Zach Kuntz, because you can't have enough Kuntz. I'm giving this room a D, and the reason why is I still question where the blocking tight end is on this roster. Mason Taylor is a developing tight end when it comes to the blocking. Okay, he's not great at it. Stone Smart is a pure slot tight end. Jeremy Ruckert, how many more times do we need to see that he cannot block when he's lined up next to the offensive line? If you give him a running start from the H-back spot, yes, he can block. But that's the only time he does. Zach Kuntz, love him, but I think it's a long shot he makes this roster at this point. So that is one thing the Jets are still missing. And down the road, when we get to cut day, a blocking tight end, I think, is one of the main things that they can look to get. Because the free agent class right now is barren. Like what the Jets should look to do is to do to another team what the Bears did to them a few years ago when the Bears claimed Trevon Wesco, the tight end, who's really more of a blocker. So I think that is a piece the Jets really need. They need that Ben Hartsock type tight end. So I hope that they're able to get that, because for an offense that is going to be so predicated on running the football, you need a blocking tight end. And I just don't trust Mason Taylor right now as the number one blocking tight end on this roster. Harlan Abraham, have to see with better coaching if the tight end room can be better. You know, we all love Ron Middleton, but let's be honest, there really wasn't a tight end who really grew or developed while he was here. Sorry to say it, but it's the truth. It's really the truth. So then we go to offensive tackle. Now we're going to get a little bit better. So Armand Membu, of course, drafted number 7 overall in the first round. 6'4", 332 pounds. Tyler Warren would have been a little more of a glitzy choice, but Membu fills the gaping hole that they had to fill. Clearly, Aaron Glenn wants to have in New York what he had in Detroit, and that was a very strong, deep offensive line. He's compared Membu's mentality and demeanor to Penei Sewell. I will take that any day of the week. Now, the thing with Membu, we got to remember, he is a better pass blocker than he is run blocker. Last year, he dominated, allowed 0 sacks, 0 quarterback hits, and 8 pressures on 411 pass blocking snaps. Now, in the run game, he had an 87.6 run blocking grade. Very, very good. Dominates in the run zone game. It's just that he's a little more consistent as a pass blocker than he is as a run blocker. But his leg power is ridiculous. His 40 dash time was 4.91 seconds, so he's super fast, super explosive. And again, he's still only 20 years old. He's got years of growth ahead of him, and thank goodness we have a new offensive line coach. So I'm very happy to have Armand Membu. Also throw in Leander Weigand from Germany, part of the International Player Pathway, coached by Joe Thomas in Germany. I like that. All we really know, he's 6'5", 318 pounds, and bench press 225 pounds 38 times. 38 times. I don't know if I can do 125 pounds 38 times. I can do a little bit, but oh my God. So he is a strong SOB, at least up top. So at tackle, we add Membu and Weigand to a roster that includes Olufashanu, Chukwuma Okorafor, Max Mitchell, and Carter Warren. I'm going to give this a solid B. I love Olu, love that he is with us. Membu, still unproven. Probably going to go through some rookie growing pains. I expect that. Past that, the depth. Max Mitchell and Carter Warren. I think every Jet fan has ripped those two at this point. And Okorafor is a complete wild card, but I'm glad he is the swing tackle now. Okay, now he was good in Pittsburgh for a few years at right tackle. When he went to left tackle, it was a nightmare. As many of you know, he lasted 12 snaps before New England benched him, and he basically left the team. So I think that the tackle grade is good, but I think it has the potential to be better. Say his name and he appears. I believe in Johnny. I believe in Johnny. All right. The great Johnny Jimenez holding down the fort in Chesapeake, Virginia. Hope you're having a fine, fine week, my friend. I appreciate you coming by. All right, let's go to the interior offensive line here. Yes, I made sure to get a shot of Simpson, AVT, and Tippmann in one picture. I love this picture right here. Love this picture. So the only IOL that the Jets brought in was Gus Hartwig, the center from Purdue. Now, he brings you a ton of experience, 3,400 snaps in college. He's played a little right guard, but he is really a center. In 3 years, he's allowed only 3 sacks. He's allowed in over 2,000 pass blocking snaps. He's allowed 56 pressures only. Only 56. So he is another player that will suit the tough physical mentality that the Jets want. Add a little more play strength, and it will go a long way. That's probably the main reason, again, why he didn't make. It's like the Jets are looking for players with the mentality, with the motor, but they want to add things that they feel they can coach. Like, you could have a guy go into the weight room, do the bench presses, add the supplements, add the protein, and he could add some more size. You could do that, but you can't teach football instincts. You can't teach toughness. And I think that's the pattern that we're seeing with some of these picks. Hey, David D., how's the computer doing? Yeah, I'm just going to wait for the right. I'm just using my work computer for the time being. It seems to be working out this way. Okay. When I find the right deal, I will get a new computer. The only thing that's annoying about this is I have to take this computer back and forth to and from work. But I've actually figured a few things out of how to make some things easier using Google Slides instead of OneDrive or Google Docs instead of OneDrive. So I've learned a few things. I think I've improved the wheel a little bit. By the way, if you want the wheel, please hit that thumbs up button. Please hit that thumbs up button. We get our 15 likes. We will spin the wheel at the end of the night. But so it's all up to you. All right. All right, so when we look at the interior offensive line, we had Hartwig to a room that includes AVT, John Simpson, Joe Tippmann, Josh Myers for only $3.5 million, which is insane. Xavier Newman. To me, I'm going to give that room an A-. I like that a lot. I'm a little bit more concerned about the backup guard situation, but Myers could go in there. And I guess if anything, it's like AVT and Simpson, their contracts are coming up. But you know what? I like this a lot. I could have gone A. But I think Tippmann can grow his game just a little bit more with the snapping and all of that. But I really, really like the interior offensive line on this team. So I'm going A- for this position for the Jets. Grandizer, Baba Booey to you as well. Been wanting to hear my take on the Jets 2025 results. Well, we talked some offense, and now we're going to get into the defense. So let's start with edge rushers. There's a smiling Jermaine Johnson. That's right. Newman is a good guard. I'm glad that they kept him. He is pretty good. He's pretty good. Maybe I'm just too nervous to get the grades that high at the risk of being disappointed. I don't know. But I think, Tippmann can raise his game just a little bit more, especially with the snapping. It'd be an A. Swig of water for the working man and woman. All right. So at edge, the Jets bring in Tyler Barron from Miami, Florida. The Jets wanted him so much they traded up 10 spots with Baltimore. So they sent a 6th round and a 5th round next year to the Ravens for that pick and a 6th rounder in 2026. Now, I'm glad the Jets added an edge rusher. It was a very thin position. You have your 2 starters, but we all know you can't have enough edge rushers. And if Michael Clemens is your 3rd edge rusher, well, you know you're in trouble. You know you are in big, big trouble. So who is Tyler Barron? Well, he transferred in from Tennessee, had 5.5 sacks last year, but then again, PFF says 10 sacks. So it's somewhere between 5.5 and 10, depending on who you want to believe. I choose to believe the 10 sack numbers. That's right. PFF, we love you. But he's always graded out very well against the run. So this could be that replacement for John Franklin Myers they didn't have last year. Good size, 6'5", 258, needs to be a little bit more disciplined. That's the other thing there. You know, he can't be taking penalties. So he's got a great motor, but now he's got to learn to harness it a little bit. So that's all the Jets add at edge. So Tyler Barron in the 6th round, you add him to Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald, Michael Clemens, Rashad Weaver, Braden McGregor, and Eric Watts. I just hope one of those last 2 can take a step up. I really, really do. They played last year, but they weren't really impact players. Weaver, free agent from Tennessee, from the Titans, I should say. So to me, you have 2 very, very good starters, assuming, of course, JJ is ready to go. All indications are he should be fine. But there's questions at depth. But I got a feeling between Barron, McGregor, and Watts, one of them's got to be able to step up. Just one of them. And I think put it this way, your average football fan forgets just how valuable JJ was to the Jets last year. Without him, the Jets lost their best 2-way defensive end, and that was in week 2, and it was never the same after that. When JJ went, the defense went. And then when Jeff Ulbrich got promoted, it went from like, into straight into the toilet faster than you could flush. So that's what I think about the edge rusher. I'm going, okay. I'm going B-, like a little above average, but not remarkably above average. Let's go to defensive tackle. So I compare this position to the wide receiver. Jets add Fatorma Mulba from West Virginia, 6'4", 300 pounds. I think I saw Harlan put in a comment earlier that he's got to hit the weight room. And that is fair to say. He had 2 years at Penn State. They did not work out. So the last 2 years, he was the middle of the Mountaineers' middle defense. He's graded out 75 or better against the run the last 2 years, which is very much above average. Over the last 2 years, 75 tackles, 8 sacks. But again, with the stats with defensive tackle, it's always a little bit tricky. It all depends on scheme, how they're schemed against and things like that. Basically, what we want is somebody to clog the middle and get a little bit of burst. Mulba can do that. Mulba can do that. And even though the Jets have brought in a lot of defensive tackles, it's basically an open competition for who's going to get the bulk of the playing time next to number 95 right there. They also had Peyton Page from Clemson. Now, over the last 4 years, he's only had 60 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, and half a sack, but he is a pretty good run stuffer. Basically what we need to do, take some of that excess weight off Peyton Page and somehow put it onto Mulba. Somewhere in the middle, then you got something. Now, the thing with Page, we got to give him some credit. He is down to 290 pounds, but since he got to Clemson, he has shed 100 pounds. If only Mekhi Becton had been on the same diet plan, he might still be here right now. Oh, my gosh. So I give credit to Page for showing the work ethic and showing the discipline to lose 100 pounds. But we look at the defensive tackle position overall. Those two additions to Quinnen Williams, Leonard Taylor, Byron Cowart, Derek Nottie, Jay Tufele, and Fedarian Mathis. There were 30 defensive tackles drafted over the weekend, and they're going to rely on a lot of young veterans, low-cost veteran additions. So I think the biggest hope is that Leonard Taylor can take another step up. He got a lot of playing time last year. So if he could turn himself into a reliable starter, that would be a big deal. Fedarian Mathis, I still think, has some capability. He was looking pretty good for the Jets before he got hurt. Cowart, Nottie, Tufele, it's like, hey, whatever. If one of them turns into like the next Solomon Thomas, like an okay rotational player, I'll take that. But yeah, if Mulba or Page can make the team, that would be very, very encouraging and push off a Cowart or Tufele. Ideally you have one of these UDFAs come up and kick off one of the young veterans. That's the best thing we can hope for. Well, getting rolled up on led to the weight issue, is what I would say, Harlan. So, yeah, they're both problems to an extent. I'll give you that. So I'm going C+ here, very similar to the wide receiver situation. Little bit above average because you have a great player at top, but after that, a bunch of questions. On to the linebacker position. So the Jets draft Francisco Mauioga from Miami. This is the other draft pick from the Hurricanes. 6'2", 233 pounds. Pretty good runner, 4.60 40 dash time. Led Miami in tackles each of the last 2 years, including 29 tackles for a loss and 26 starts. He's from America's Samoa, which I like a lot. If you know wrestling and things like that, guys from the islands tend to be a little extra tough, a little bit harder to crack. Sione Puja's got that bloodline in him too. But Mauioga played 2 years at Washington State before transferring to Miami. Very, very good run defender. Can play special teams very efficiently. And I think that might be his ticket to getting on this roster. The way he describes himself is a sideline-to-sideline player, creates turnovers. Here's the quote from Mauioga that I liked. He said, the best way to win games is to create turnovers. I love that. Because one of the biggest issues with this defense is they don't take the ball away. For all you could say about Robert Saleh's defense, its advantages, its disadvantage, they rarely took the ball away. And that made it that much harder for the offense. It was so frustrating. So we have a player here who that is his mindset. Come downhill, fast, physical, make tackles in the backfield, create chaos any way possible. So this isn't really going to be that coverage linebacker. This is sort of like another run stop, sort of like a box safety, but with a little bit more size. So I'm very intrigued what Mauioga can do. I could see him being a player who slowly works his way up. Maybe he could be that third linebacker next to Quincy and next to Jamian. I don't think that's impossible. And then we get to a couple of undrafted free agents. Now, the Jets signed a lot of undrafted free agent linebackers. In fact, they signed 3 of them. So that's tied with the most of any other position. Jamarcus Weston from the Florida Gators, 6'3", 215 pounds. This is a special teams specialist. Okay. Had over 600 snaps playing on special teams all across the coverage units for Florida. Used as a gunner, well-respected as a leader. This is sort of like Justin Hardy, the sequel. That kind of player. Aaron Smith from South Carolina State started for South Carolina State for 4 years. Named first team all Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. He's coming off a good year. 95 tackles, 8.5 tackles for a loss. He's only played 1 year as a starter, but before that, he was at Clemson. So he played behind some very, very good defensive tackles while he was at Clemson. The issue with Smith, he's got shorter arms, so he's not a very twitchy player. He doesn't get off blocks very well. He does have good foot quickness. He shows enough flashes where maybe he could compete for a backup role. So I'm not quite as high on him, but we'll see. And then you have Jared Bartlett from Cincinnati. This is a middle linebacker, spent 5 years at Vanderbilt before spending his last year with the Bearcats. Very, very good year with Cincy. 69 tackles, 7.5 sacks, 12 tackles for a loss. Good size and speed. 6'1", 238 pounds. Ran a 4.65 40. Got pretty good speed. So let's see what this Bartlett guy can do. It looks like he has been productive for Cincinnati. Let's see if he can do the same for the New York Jets. So we add those 4 linebackers to the stew that already includes Quincy Williams, Jamian Sherwood, Zaire Barnes, and Jamin Davis. Don't forget him. The Jets signed him to a reserve contract. I think he's going to have a very good chance to make the roster as well. I think with Quincy and Jamian, you have the best 1-2 punch at linebacker pretty much in the game. After that, well, we'll see, because typically you're playing with 3 linebackers, and with Aaron Glenn, you never know what you might play. You might play with 3 down linemen, 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, 3 linebackers, 4 linebackers. We don't know. But the third linebacker role is why I have this at a B+. I think it's very, very good. But Jamian's had 1 year of production so far, of really, really good production. Let's see him do it again after he got paid. Okay. And again, with the drafted players, it's sort of a wait and see situation. I like the idea of Mauioga. Jamin Davis, I like what he could possibly bring. Zaire Barnes, we're still waiting on it. So I'm going B+ there for the linebacker position, but I definitely like it. Then we go to cornerback. All right, let's go to the secondary. So we got Sauce Gardner on that picture. I know he's got to be happy right now. So Azareye'h Thomas from Florida State, the 3rd round pick. The first draft pick where Jet fans' eyebrows, they went like the Rock. They just kind of went up a little bit, right? So Thomas was a Senior Bowl riser. He's 6'2". Aaron Glenn loves that. He likes his cornerbacks to have some size. 15 passes defensed in the last 2 years. So the thing with Thomas, very physical and disruptive at the line of scrimmage. He uses a 2-handed punch, which is very rare among corners. Okay, and he uses it very, very well. He is all about disrupting that receiver right away. The reason Thomas lasted till the 3rd round is because his speed is not the best. At the Florida State Pro Day, he was clocked at about 4.58 seconds. Not great. That's kind of below average for a starting cornerback. But he does enough to make up for the speed. He has the size, the ball skills, the physicality to get up in the face of wide receivers. I guess the deal was the talent was too much to pass up. A lot of people thought he had maybe 2nd-round talent. Jets get him early in the 3rd. The other issue with Thomas is his tackling. He has to work on his tackling. He has about a 13% missed tackle rate the last 2 years. So I'd like to see him bring that down to maybe like 7-8%. Then we got something to work with. So his tackling is an issue, but he has a lot of raw ability that, again, you just can't teach. And I think that's going to make him a very valuable piece. Hopefully by the end of the year, maybe he supplants Brandon Stevens as a starter in that secondary. Jets also had Jordan Clark from Notre Dame, son of Ryan Clark on ESPN. Yeah, we'll leave that aside. 5'10", ran a 4.66 40, which is terrible for a defensive back. Ran a 7.31 second short shuttle, which is even worse. But for Notre Dame, he played over 600 snaps, allowed only 1 touchdown, had 1 interception, graded very well against the run, 6 pass breakups. If anything, maybe you could see him on special teams, but I think Jordan Clark's a little bit of a long shot to make this team. And another reason why he's a long shot to make this team is because we look at this cornerback room, and it's dynamite. You had Thomas and Clark, so Sauce Gardner, Brandon Stevens, Michael Carter II, Quantez Stiggers, Isaiah Oliver, very nice piece that the Jets brought back, Jarek Bernard Converse, and you have a lot here to work with. All right, I would expect Stevens and Thomas to fight for that starting role. Even without Brandon Eccles, I think Quantez Stiggers can take a step up. But Jarek Bernard Converse, we've been seeing it in preseason for a while, but he rarely got opportunities to show it in games. Hopefully now he will. But even if you have to go to Isaiah Oliver, he's still a very useful veteran. So I am definitely a fan of the cornerback room. I'm going A- for the cornerbacks. All right. Yeah, the addition of Thomas definitely took it up from would have been a B or a B+. On to safety. So here's Tony Adams jumping in the air like a dummy. but he's happy about something. Maybe that was the game where we beat Philadelphia. I don't know. But in any event, Jets draft Malachi Moore. And I liked that pick a lot. That was a pick I had right around my top 10 for safeties. I was glad that they took him, even though I would have liked Kevin Winston a little bit earlier. Moore was available. Jets traded up to get him. They thought a lot of him. And they actually moved up 15 spots to grab Eminem. So he is a 4-year starter for Alabama. So you know he's played in the best conference with one of the best programs. 2-time team captain. I like that too. Finished his career 7 interceptions, 31 passes defensed. Now, he doesn't give you a lot of size. He's 5'11", 197. He doesn't give you the speed you want either. 4.57 seconds in the 40-yard dash. But what he does give you is experience, toughness, and good football instincts. He's a playmaking safety. He will play great in the deep field. This is your center field safety. Okay? The completion percentage he allowed, only 43%. That's really good. 7 pass breakups, 2 interceptions in 2024. He has good athleticism. I wouldn't call it great athleticism, but good athleticism with great natural instincts. He would thrive really in a zone because what you want with Malachi Moore, here's how he's going to thrive. Let his awareness, his coverage ability, and his anticipation shine. So I think Moore is best suited in a zone situation, not playing one-on-one against someone. So that's important. He knows how to react to different routes and schemes, renowned for his leadership. God knows the Jets could use that. Play strength, again, could use some help going against the bigger blocker. Isn't it interesting that a lot of these players I've mentioned, the biggest issue is they could use some more strength? Isn't that interesting? So I hope the Jets got that weight room ready to go. Man, oh man. But don't be surprised. You look at the rest of the safety room. Don't be surprised if Morse gets a lot of early time on the field and works his way into becoming a starter. I could see it. And then you throw in the other Clark, Dean Clark from Fresno State. Now, this is the Clark who had an official visit with the Jets very early on. 6'1", 205 pounds, runs a 4.49 40, so a little faster than Malachi Moore. 41-inch vertical leap, so quite explosive. 6 years in college. In the last 2 years, 4 interceptions, 7 passes defensed, and also a pretty good run-stopping safety, which we like. So we had Moore and Clark to Tony Adams, Andre Sisco, Jalen Simpson, and Jarius Monroe. To me, this is still not a good safety room right now. We'll see what Moore can do, but right now, all I can do is give it a D. Tony Adams, to me, is in a prove-it year. Okay? I think he really has to prove himself to this new coaching staff. He's here for 1 more year. And, you know, he's had some tackling issues, which have been an issue. I'm an Andre Sisco fan. He's only here 1 year. Jalen Simpson, Jarius Monroe have proven nothing. Dean Clark and Malachi Moore are complete unknowns right now. Okay. If Sisco, I wish Sisco could have been signed for an extra year or so. But right now, if you look at safety rooms around the league, the Jets are, you can't call the Jets anything less than below average. So to me, I've got to go D right now. It's the best I can give them. And if it wasn't for Sisco, I'd probably go with an F. If Jalen Mills was back, they'd get an A. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I'd probably take them to like a C- there if they had Jalen Mills. But you look at this, and what's the Jets starting safety situation going to look like? I would guess 2 of the 3 of Adams, Sisco, and Moore. So I don't know. I don't know how much. I don't know if I love that all that much. So let's see what winds up happening. But I think the Jets are quite strong. They're strong at linebacker. They're strong at cornerback. They're okay at defensive tackle. Edge, I think, is a little bit better. So, yeah, it's one of those things where you hope the coaching, makes up for some of the talent that was lost this offseason. So let's see. Grandizer, I can't wait to see what AG can do with Malachi Moore. I'm with you. But I just can't assume that these draft picks are going to come in and be great contributors right away. Membu a little more so, Taylor a little bit, but I can't automatically do that right now with Malachi. He's going to have to earn that playing spot. All right. Now, I know for anybody who thinks I'm actually done, not a chance. We got to talk about kickers, right? Of course we're talking about kickers. You all know me by now. So the Jets bring in Caden Davis from Ole Miss, previously Texas A&M. I wanted Ryan Fitzgerald. Doesn't quite work out. I think he signed with, I want to say he signed with Tampa. I want to say it was. I know Andres Borges-Gallus went to the Patriots. But yeah, Fitzgerald went to Carolina. I knew it was an NFC South team. So he goes over to the Panthers, which, hey, Eddie Pinheiro, hey, better watch it. Yeah, maybe we get Easy Eddie back. But I will say this. He's 6'1", 208. I actually had him in my top 4 kickers. So I am good with this. I really, really am. He was very accurate this past season, made 24 of 29 field goals. So that's a make percentage of 82.76. For his career, he's right around 77%. And on kicks over 50 yards, he's 2 of 4 with a career long of 57 yards. So Davis also can kick a very, very strong leg. He has 82 touchbacks on 96 kickoffs. I also like that he did it in the SEC, kicking against good teams in big stadiums in big spots. That's encouraging. Harlan, Jets should have brought in another kicker. Well, yep, they did. So now you got a 3-way competition. That leads me right to my next post. Caden Davis competing with Greg Zuerlein and Anders Carlson. So right now, you never know with a kicker year to year. I know Zuerlein was terrible last year, but he does have a decent proving ground. And Carlson, okay. You know, it was okay, wasn't great, but I like the idea of a young kicker like this coming in. I could see Caden Davis winning the job. I really could. Remember, Jets cut Zuerlein. They saved over $2 million. So I'm going to go C+ for right now. Maybe I'm being a little bit generous there. But hey, maybe Chris Banjo works a little bit of magic and gets these kickers right. But again, year to year, you never know what you're going to get with a kicker. All right, so that is that. And so just to look forward, here's what the Jets have in 2026. They got their first round. They got their second round. They've got 2 4s, their own, and a comp pick from Hassan Reddick, signing with another team. Then you've got round 6. Then their own round 6. Then you have the Bills, the Broncos, and the Ravens. Now, they're all playoff teams this past year. Hopefully, at least one will not make the playoffs. I guess that'd be the Broncos. So that 6th-round pick could be a little bit better. And then you got the 7th-round comp pick for losing Tyler Conklin. So 9 picks next year, which is pretty good. But again, only 2 of them are on day 1 and 2. So you have to factor that in. So just to sort of recap this draft overall, my goal was to see 3 starters drafted. I figured that'd be the first 3 rounds. It doesn't look like that is what happened, but you have a starter at tight end now. You have a starter at right tackle now, and you have a potential starter at safety and a potential starter at cornerback. So maybe it did happen, maybe it didn't. But I think by the end of the year, it's very possible we could have 4 starters coming from this draft, and that's not even counting undrafted free agents. So, thought it'd be 3. No, right now it's a 4 and a 7. That's the latest update. Right now it's a 4 and a 7. So 3 would be nice, but right now it's only 2. But we said this from the outset. We said this over the last few weeks. The Jets were not going to be able to fill every need on their roster. We knew it would still be an incomplete team, and you could say it is at wide receiver, at defensive tackle. Certain positions are not as deep as you would like. But their most dire needs, there are 5 positions: right tackle, tight end, safety, wide receiver, and defensive line, and all of them have been addressed to various extents. So there will be competition at certain positions. Wide receiver and defensive tackle will certainly bear watching. If you want to get into the third quarterback, we could talk about that over time if you want, but it's going to be Cook versus Martinez. It doesn't exactly get me all hot and bothered. And then with edge rusher, who is going to get that third defensive end spot behind Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson? You have a lot of numbers there. Let's see what happens. I think a lot of the position battles now are going to be on defense, and I think they're going to be very exciting to watch. I really do. Hopefully nobody wins it by default and somebody just wins it outright. Okay, guys. Well, I'll tell you what. It is. First of all, hey, everybody. Thanks for hanging with me tonight. So we got through the main portion of the show. Now we're gonna have a little bit of fun. Sort of take it back a little bit. Just a reminder, please hit that thumbs up button. We're a few likes away still from getting to our 15. Okay. So if you want to spin the wheel, you got to hit the thumbs up. But let's do something that we do every single week. We're going to do it right now. It is 7 o'clock on the nose. So every week, guys, you know what happens. Every week, I head down into the labyrinth of Jets knowledge. I bust open the books. I dust off the Encyclopedia Britannica. I open up the websites, and I, Watch UK99, challenge you, the most loyal fans of the most loyal fan base in the NFL, freaking L. Just how much do you know about your New York Jets? So if you are ready, you better be ready. I know you're ready because I'm ready. Let's play Jets Trivia. I just felt the need to do it one more time. All right, let's play Jets Trivia. Okay, so let's put the question on the board. So we'll do another sort of draft-related question. Guys, reminder on how it works. By the way, I am working on the ability to add a timer on here. If you look at the Canva to StreamYard situation, it's like 15 steps. It's absolutely ridiculous. There should just be like clock, add, set time, start, stop. That's all you need. But it is something that I will be working on for next week because I think that would make it a little bit it'd make it a little bit better. But it is something I'm working on. I wanted you to know that. All right, so we're going to do a draft-related question. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to put 5 minutes on my timer and throw your answers right down there in the chat, and I will let you know if it is a correct answer or an incorrect answer. So let's get started right now. Oh, when will the wheel be spun for next year's first draft pick? I don't like to do drafts, like mock draft stuff, until the season's over and we know where we're picking. But we could always do something like, what position will we draft next year? Because right now I'd just be throwing out a bunch of random names and I'd be like, cool. All right. Sounds good. I know Arch Manning and I know him and not much else. Yeah. But I actually did make a new wheel, the Jets wide receiver wheel. So I have been hard at work on my wheel making. Grandizer, I think you may have talked about him, but intrigued on Aaron Smith, the South Carolina State linebacker. Yeah, I did mention him. Yeah, he was the one, I believe, the special teams player, if I remember correct. Oh no, that was actually Jamarcus Weston. Yeah, so I did mention him, that he hasn't had a lot of production, but yeah, was first team All MEAC, 95 tackles, 8.5 tackles for a loss, 4-year start, and played at Clemson a little bit too. So. Maybe do a share screen, share a timer video from YouTube. Seen that, but I lag too much when sharing my screen. Yeah, like when I do the mock drafts, I have to take some stuff off. I'd like to be able to add it to one screen. And the other thing is, Danger, I want to add the question has to be on at all times to me. I want the question and the clock at the same time. So I could do like a little overlay with the clock, then that would be fine. But it's something that's just going to take a little bit of work. And, there has to be a way to do it. It's just a matter of finding the most efficient way. Okay, guys, this is a question not too different than what I've asked before, but I think it's only appropriate. As you all know, the Jets drafted a linebacker this past weekend from the University of Miami. Your question tonight goes like this. Name the other two. I didn't mean tight ends. I meant linebackers. I'm just going to take this off the screen. Name the two other linebackers the Jets drafted from Miami. And I mean franchise history. All right, so let's throw that there in the chat. All right, name the other two linebackers the Jets have drafted from Miami, Florida. So let's see you throw those chats. Let's see you throw those chats in there. Oh, Atlanta Hawks guard Dyson Daniels won the Most Improved Player of the Year award in the NFL. What the frickin' do? All right, Danger Zone starts with Vilma. Is it Jonathan Vilma? It is Jonathan Vilma, drafted number 1 in 2004. First round pick of the Jets. That is correct. There has only been one other linebacker drafted by the Jets from Miami. And I'll give you all a clue right now. He was drafted the same year as Vilma was, 2004. So they're kind of joined at the hip a little bit. Now, this other player did not last in the league or with the Jets as long as Vilma did, but he was a linebacker drafted from Miami. So what do we think? All right. Not sure the other one? Okay. I can tell you this. He only spent 1 year with the Jets, then he went to the Bears. Played a couple years with the Bears and was a pretty good player for them. Not a great player, but he was a useful player for him. He was a role player. And he was a 7th round pick. Danger, Josh Mwaga. No, on Josh Mwaga. I think he was with the Jets a little bit later. I think he came over from New England, didn't he? Yeah. So this guy only played for the Jets and the Bears. All right, got about a little over 2 minutes left to go on the clock here. I will admit this is not the easiest answer, so I want to give you a couple of hints. So, name the 2 linebackers that the Jets had taken from Miami, Florida. They'd only taken 2 in franchise history up till this weekend. Jonathan Vilma was one. The other one was drafted the same year in 2004. 7th round pick, spent a year with the Jets, then went to Chicago for a couple of years. Who is that linebacker? Danger reaching to Sharon McLean for the hot tag. He's reaching out he'll go for Curly Norman, Nick Shine, any of our trivia buffs. Yeah, I knew this one would be a little bit tougher. Knew this would be a little bit tougher. I see we got a bunch of new people here in the chat. Welcome, everybody. Hope you're having a great night. We're playing some Jets trivia right now. Yeah, and spent the night kind of breaking down the Jets draft class, the UDFAs, and how the Jets are looking at each individual position. So you can always rewind it. But I definitely appreciate it. All right, less than a minute. Danger's throwing some guesses out, but I know we got more people than that in the chats. Anybody wants to go for it? So again, was drafted 2004, 7th round. Don't look it up. Drafted 7th round, 1 year with the Jets, went off to the Bears. Played a few years with them. Mostly a special teams linebacker. Yes, indeed. Hit the like button to support the show. I appreciate it. Every thumbs up, every share, all that stuff, all of it matters. Yeah. 15 seconds. All right. Five, four, three, two, one. Okay. All right. So we didn't get the answer tonight. The correct answers are Jonathan Vilma, and the other one was Daryl McClover. Also played linebacker at Miami. Jets let him go after 1 year. Sat out 2005, I believe, due to injury, was let go. Bears picked him up, and he played 4 or 5 years with the Monsters of the Midway. So those are the correct answers for tonight's trivia. Thanks, everybody, for playing along. All right, guys, I think we're going to call it a night. So I appreciate everybody hanging with me as I do every single week. You know the deal. Wednesday night, 6 p.m., Wednesday Night Live. And we'll see what's coming up over the next couple of weeks. But we'll come up with some ideas. Maybe you'll see him get a guest or two on to have a little dialogue about where the Jets are. And I guess we are, I believe, 2 weeks away from the schedule coming out? Yeah, May 14th. So, yeah, it's actually a Wednesday when the Jets schedule comes out. So 2 weeks we'll do a schedule breakdown. Why not? May as well. So next week, we'll come up with something. But everybody, appreciate you joining me tonight. Oh, hey, Sharon. Oh, there you are. Yeah, McLovin. There we go. Glad you're here. Yeah, in the background, still fine. Glad you made it tonight. But all right, so we'll go a little different direction with the trivia next week. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your week. I'll see you back here next Wednesday with more content from you know where. The Wicker Chair. Have a good night, everybody.